in fear, in awe, and terror of a holy and a righteous God, that they were called to meet him face to face that day. And then, as they stopped right there, then God shouted down from the mountain his 10 commandments. The 10 commandments were not first given on tables of stone. God shouted them down, and the people heard from the voice of God himself. They heard as God spoke out those 10 commandments. When those 10 commandments were then spoken out, the people with one accord told Moses, "Please, Moses, never have God speak to us again. Please, we are afraid that if God speaks to us again, we will die." It was a shaking thing for them. They said, "If you will just talk to God, and from now on, if God will just talk to you, and whatever God tells you, you tell us, and we will obey. We promise. But don't ever have God speak to us again. We are afraid that we're going to die." You know, God hearkened to the people. And from that day on, God spoke to Moses face to face as one would speak to his friend. And whatever Moses said, from then on, Israel listened and they obeyed. But God told Moses to instruct the people, I never, ever want you to ever forget this day, Israel. Never forget this day. So from now on the 7th month, on the first day of the 7th month, thou shalt have a memorial of the blowing of trumpets. You will remember this day as long as you live forever. And it is to be a statute for all your generations forever to remember this very day in which God spoke his commandments. When you are gathered together in the presence of God, and it is to be done on the 7th month, on the first day of the month. Even though it originally occurred at the time of Shavuot, in the Pentecost, at the time of the spring feast. But yet, why did God move it to the 7th month, the first day of the 7th month? Because none of the 7th month or Sabbath month feasts begin their final fulfillments until the 7th or Sabbath millennium, the day or the millennium of the Lord. Just as the prophet said, Malachi, that the Messiah will arise with healing in his wings, he literally said, the Son of Righteousness will arise with healing in his kanaf, the tzitzit, the corner of his garment. And we see the fulfillment of that in the Gospels. The woman who had the issue of blood, taking hold of the tzitzit of his garment and hanging onto it and confessing that he was Messiah. A woman that could be stoned on the spot because she reached out and touched a kosher rabbi. But yet, when she was asked, when the finger was put in her face, who touched me? She didn't deny. She confessed, I did. Because she knew if this is the Messiah, she would be healed. And just as the rabbis taught that as the sun was created on the 4th day, so the Messiah will come on the 4th day. And literally on Tishri 15 of 3999, with less than 18 months to go in the 4th millennium, the Word was made flesh and tabernacled among us. It has now been 2 days or 2,000 years since he came the first time as he tabernacled among us. Now it has been 2 days. We have entered into 6001, the 7th or the Sabbath millennium. After 2 days, Hosea says, he will revive us. In the 3rd day, he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. We have now entered into the time of the 3rd day. And we are going to see something that is going to be so powerful that God is going to move in such an incredible way that from that moment on, all of Israel will know their Messiah. And just as they never doubted Moses after that point, Moses spoke of a prophet who would come, that if the people did not hear and obey him, they would be cut off. And that prophet is the Messiah. God is about to do something so earth-shaking that it is going to change the way the entire world understands things. Now, Tishri 1 is a day of announcements. It's the day that the 10 Commandments were given. It was also the day when the first sliver of the new moon appeared of Tishri 1, in which the announcement of the birth of the righteous king, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, was made. It is also going to be the announcement for the confirmation of the covenant spoken by the prophet Daniel, and it is also a picture of the resurrection in the last day. And we'll see that in the Gospels as we get to that particular point. We see that the initiation of this feast is at Mount Sinai, and it always occurs on a day and hour that no man knows. You prepare for it in advance. You get ready for it in advance because you know the times and the seasons, but you never know the day or hour. You know, among the Jews in Israel now, it is a 2-day feast. Why? Because they don't want to miss it. But that misses the point. You are not supposed to know when it occurs. You are to prepare in advance, and when that trumpet sounds, that is it. That's how it's to be rehearsed, because it is a shadow picture that the Messiah will fulfill, and we'll see that as we continue on. Now we see from Tishri 1 to Tishri 10, these are the 10 days of awe, leading up to the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement is the most holy day in the entire year. And on the Day of Atonement still in the land of Israel, we don't eat, we don't drink, we don't brush our teeth, we don't put water in our mouth. We completely deny ourselves any of those physical pleasures for that entire period from sundown on the 9th to the sundown at the end of the 10th on the Day of Atonement. Not a car is driven, not a plane lands. It is quiet in all the land of Israel to this very day. And it has always been the most holy day of the entire year in God's calendar. But leading up to it are the 10 days of awe. In an agricultural society, what goes on during those 10 days is that we are bringing in the grain into the garner. We're separating the wheat from the chaff. The chaff is then fanned down to one end of the threshing floor, and it is piled up there. And at the end of that 10 days, then we take a torch to that chaff, and it is burned up with an unquenchable fire. It is this 10 days in which it's called the 10 days of awe, which are days of introspection. We look back at the year and we saw where we've planted, where we've watered, where we've worked the land, where we've done what we were supposed to do, and now what the increase is, what we're harvesting, is a direct result of what we have sown. It can be a time of rejoicing, but many times it's a time of looking at the meager harvest and realizing that if we would have woken up a little bit early, if we would have gotten out and planted another field, if we would have used better seed and planted it in better fields, we would have more of a harvest now. But what we've got is all we're going to have, and it lasts us and will have to last us all the way around to the next harvest. There's no way to make up for what you didn't do now. So it's a time of introspection and a time of dealing with reality.